Hi there.
Hi.
You want to go ahead and say your name, who you are?
I am Jon Dudkowski. I'm here. Do I look directly at the camera or you?
Oh, me is fine. I'm just sitting here.
So I'm Jon Dudkowski. I'm here as an editor and a director for Star Trek Discovery, which is a show that I was a part of from the first day of shooting until the last. And I'm a big sci-fi junkie, huge Star Trek fan. And these Wondercon conventions are great because they line up really beautifully with the things that I get the most excited about as a filmmaker.
Well, I'm Mary Gillespie. I'm a student review out of Phoenix.
Okay.
And this is my daughter, Sarah. Love the panel. I'm a Star Trek fan also, so I was just like... So what got you into this? I know you were saying that you watched Star Trek since you were a little kid, but what made you decide to go this route and do this kind of thing?
Well, I grew up in a family that did a lot of production. Like my father came out of TV news. My mom was involved in doing health videos for the state of California. And so as a little kid, we used to go and do like a vacation for my family was put all the camera gear in the back of the Suburban, drive to a location, do a stand-up. I would sit there, I was like a little kid, and I would hold a bounce card, or I'd hold a microphone, or I'd coil cables, and at the end of that, we'd put everything back into the station wagon, and then we'd go out to dinner, and that was like a family getaway, right? So I always was, and for me, that was fun. It was I got to see a lot of neat things that way, and so I got pretty good at using a camera and using sound and figuring out how all these tools can tell a story. And I went to film school, and I kind of looked at doing other things with my life. I looked at being a history professor. I looked at being a lawyer, a judge. Looked at engineering. I looked at a lot of different options, and they all felt like work. Like all of them were a job, And it was like, oh, this could be an interesting job, and you make some money doing it, but it was always work. Meanwhile, I was in my spare time. I was making movies with my friends, and I was doing little plays with people, and I was always like sort of in the filmmaking stuff. And the idea that you could actually make a living telling stories with a camera and sound, like that was like basically what I came to the conclusion of. I'm just going to keep following this until it doesn't work, and then I'll stop and get a real job. And so far, I'm still doing it. Yeah. So so far so good. The industry the last few years have definitely it's been shaky, but I've been lucky enough that I've been able to make it work. And to that end, so you've got me loving storytelling and thinking that it's the best way to support myself and my family without having to actually hold down a real job. And then as the stories that I'm most interested in telling have always been science fiction, whether it's Isaac Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke, Star Trek. I've always just been a huge science fiction fan because a lot of times the stories that are being told in science fiction, they're metaphors for the world we live in now. And it's a way to sort of look at the world we live in and repackage it in a metaphor and tell an exciting, interesting story that when you really stop and think about it, you're like, that actually might be a parable about the Cold War or whatever it is. And that's the thing that I love so much about Star Trek is that the stories that Star Trek is telling almost always are parables or metaphors about real world issues. And almost without exception, usually with a combination of science and intelligence and communication and empathy and diplomacy and a little bit of reckless disregard for the way things are normally done, and maybe a little bit of bluster. You can usually make things work out for the best and make the world a little bit better than it was before. And as a parent, I've got 2 little kids, and now the idea of being a part of something that tells a story that illustrates a world that's better than the one we live in now, and showing my kids, hey, here's a vision of what the world could be like it could be better. And there's a lot of really great stories that don't necessarily... a lot of great series and stories and movies and shows that I've been a part of and that I love to work on. But for right now, to get to work on something that actually illustrates a better world, yeah, I'm in. I'm all in. That's the best use of what talent I've got. Like, I couldn't be happier about it.
That's great. That's good to hear. What are, I know that Star Trek's probably your favorite things in your show, but what are your favorite? What has been some of your favorites that you've
I did. I worked on Fringe with some of the same people that I work on Star Trek. That was a show on Fox about 10 years ago, and Fringe was so much fun because sometimes it was horror of the week. You know, I mean, I remember like really early on, I got to do an episode where this young woman is in like a medical gown, and a van pulls up into the middle of this little square in town, and they open the back doors and they drop her out of the van and they drive away, and she goes in the local diner and she's confused, and all of a sudden everyone in the diner is trying to see what's wrong with her, and then people start having a headache, and the next thing you know, everybody's head explodes. And it was just this bizarre, dark horror story of like, you know, I mean, and I just remember working on this and like trying to build it and make it work, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I mean, like this is a job. I get to do this. You know, this would be like what I should be doing in my free time. Fringe was great. I loved it. I loved the story. The character that John Noble played was this brilliant scientist, and he ended up kidnapping his own son from another dimension in order to save him, because he couldn't save his son from this dimension, and he knew that he could rescue his son from this other dimension, and he was going to die from the same thing his son died in this dimension. And the other dimension version of him basically went to war with him because he kidnapped his son. I mean, it was this incredible, like, beautiful triangle. And you talk about like science fiction being able to tell stories. I mean, it was a story about parenthood and impossible choices and love and regret. I mean, and then occasionally, you know, something crazy, horrible would happen, and somebody's head would explode, or you know, like, and it was great. It was you know, somebody turned invisible. I loved Fringe. I started my career working on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I was just a PA, and then I was an assistant editor, and getting to work on those stories were marvelous. I mean, I got out of school and I didn't realize that was one of my first jobs out of school, and I didn't know how good I had it because I got out of school and I was like, the working world's even better than school. This is great. And then there was a long time that I realized that wasn't the case. That holding down a job and working in the world was hard. Hollywood could be a very difficult place. But those are some of the standouts. I think Buffy, Fringe, Star Trek. I got to work for a little while on The Umbrella Academy. I love that show. I thought the producers and the team making that show, I thought it was marvelous. There's a show called Impulse that I got to be involved in that was wonderful. The Path. I've been lucky that more often than not, I've been on really good stuff. There have been a few times that I've been on projects that have made me roll my eyes, to put it gently. But more often than not, I've been lucky that I tend to work on stuff that I'm really passionate about. And so then because I bring a passion to it, it tends to work out. And what I found is that if I'm not excited or I'm not passionate about the show, the problem is with me, not with the show. And that's usually a sign that I made a bad choice and got involved in something that if I'm not passionate about it, then I'm not bringing as much creative energy to it as I could. So when I have the passion, you know, I'm energized and I'll put in the extra work and I'll come up with the ideas and I'll brainstorm, and I'm a more exciting collaborator.
So what kind of projects are coming up in the future that you're really looking forward to? Can you say?
I can't say.
But there are some.
There are some stuff that I'm involved in that I'm very, very excited about. One show that I was involved in that just came out that I think I could talk about. I hope I'm not. It was a show called Happy Face. It's on Paramount Plus, and it's about the Happy Face killer, and it's really the story of the daughter of the Happy Face killer. And it's this it was originally a podcast. King Size Productions is the team that's producing it, and it's something that I did sort of between projects. I helped out on one episode, but that was, for somebody that's been involved in space and rubber ears and Klingons and, you know, like, it was a very grounded, emotional show about this woman's journey, having a father who at times was kind of a very sweet man, but also was a serial killer and a horrible monster, and the dichotomy of her coming to grips with this monster that she grew up with, but it's also her father, and she gets pulled into some investigations that that he's involved in, and it's just this really fascinating, rich, smart, beautiful psychological drama that's really just grounded in like character and realism. Happy Face is great. I'm really. It's coming out. I think the first episode is out now. I loved it. I thought it was just a joy, a real joy.
Alrighty, well, we are out of time, so I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Viewers in Phoenix will love listening to all this, and
You're right to take that.
thank you.
I'm a huge fan of